I'm making the Mitre saw station right now, and I've got a fairly large shop, so it's pretty big. It's going to be maybe about 15 feet long, and I have three 46-inch Husky tool cabinets that I'm going to use as a base, and then at the other end I'm going to have a little space underneath it, basically just a tabletop, and that's where my shop vacs and my cyclone separators are going to go at the end. Okay, so right now I'm going to show you just a quick overview of how I made the base. I've already got the bases done, and I'll show you a picture of the base, but I'll show you how to make it here. Alright, so what I did was I just took some 2x4s, I measured the base of the cabinet, and I just inset it a little bit so the cabinet sits over top and sits over top on all four sides. And the cabinets have ridges on the bottom for support, so you're going to have to make little cutouts for those. So just 2x4s, so just like a regular 2x4 frame, you just screw them all together. So I made my base frame first, and after that was done, then I took some other 2x4s for legs, and I set them up like this. And I put 4 of them in. I used a laser level, and I used the laser level set at 4 inches on the floor to find out where I should put my legs, basically. Because this isn't going to be, your floor is never going to be 100% level. So anyway, and then you mark off the spot where the laser level shines. Let's say it's here and here. So this will be flipped over, basically, so the leg will be down like this, and it'll be underneath, so that this whole assembly will be higher, and it'll be up by, you know, whatever your laser was, right? After I got that all set up, and I put it in, I spaced it off of the wall. So I used a spacer back here off of my wall, 6 inches, and that put my cabinet in the spot that I wanted and put the base in the spot that I wanted. So what I did was, after I got that in the spot that I wanted, then I cut a 2x4, I put it inside, it sat like that, and then what I did was I tap-conned that into the concrete. So I drilled through the masonry bit, and then used tap-con screws and screwed it in so that my base couldn't go anywhere. So here are the bases, right? And then I'll show you a picture of the base that I installed. So see right here, it's really flush with the floor. If you go all the way down here to the other end, you can see how much higher that one is off the floor. So probably about an inch off of the floor. So the 2x4 spacers, so I screwed in from inside the cabinets. I took out all the drawers. I screwed from the inside of the cabinets in here into the 2x4, and in from the other cabinet into the 2x4, and I screwed through the bottom of the cabinet into the base that I made. So there's, you know, 6 screws in the bottom, 5 screws in here, there's 3 in the front, 2 in the back, and now we're just going to make the tabletop. So here's my compound miter slide. I've got the Bosch axial glide one, and that one fits closer to the back wall, so there's only, I don't know, about not quite an inch behind the back wall there, and it fits flush to the front of my cabinet, and then you have a little bit overhang on the front, but the rest of it is going to be flush with the cabinet top, and that way it just doesn't take up as much space in the garage. And I still have 8 3/4 inches that's going to be supported all the way down the table. I have set up a stop block here, you can see. It's just a 2x4 with a clamp. I measured 8 3/4, and I'm going to cut this pile of 2x4s 8 3/4. So I'm going to set these up as supports. So I'm going to put 2 there, so I match everything up with the drawer sizes. Put 1, 2, 3. So I'll have a drawer here, then I'll put the tabletop flush with the top of the saw, Alright, next I'm going to rip my plywood to 8 3/4 as well. So now you can see the infeed table will sit on top of these 2x4s, and we have to make it flush height with the saw. So we have to cut these to, just a little bit of math here, we want the saw itself is 3 3/4 inch high to be flush, and then the board that I have isn't 1/2 inch, it's 7/16 of course. So the total that I need is 3 5/16. So I've got to shave these down to 3 5/16. They're 3 1/2 right now, so 3 8/16. So I'm going to shave them down, so I'm going to run them through the saw. So now we're going to measure everything. We're going to write it down and lay it out. So now we're going to get our square, lay out the lines, and we're going to use 1-inch Robertson wood screws. We'll just pre-start our screws. Make our life easy. Put the board, the 2x4, inside the lines. I want it as close to perfect as possible. So this back corner, there's a little lip here that's blocking this, so I'm going to have to cut that out a little bit. Cut that off so it's flush, but the handle can go underneath. So we'll have to find out how deep that handle goes before we do anything here. So now I'm going to put a fence behind this, and the fence isn't really to do a whole lot other than give you a spot where you can clamp a stop block. So the fence will be there, you can clamp something to it, and then when you run your wood to it, you just slide your wood and it'll stop. I'll show you later, but anyway, that's what it's for. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this around, which I've already turned it around. We'll get the fence, and we'll put the bad side back here, the good side over here, and we will start to screw it on. Alright, so I've set this up exactly where I want it. I've make sure that your fence is as square as possible, so if you need to shim something or trim your 2x4 or whatever you got to do, try to make that as good as possible because it'll pay dividends in the end. It's just nicer and easier to work with if everything's like square and nice. So do that. Now I'm going to drill through from the top down. So what I'm going to do is take my pencil and mark where everything is. Now this one, you have to remember there's a lock mechanism here, so there's a little bar that runs across, so I have to put it on the side so I don't hit the bar, so I can clear that bar. Not a big deal. And in the ends, you got to make sure that there's nothing underneath that's going to prevent the screws from, you know, screwing this, being able to screw this to your tabletop. All right, so make sure. Okay, so I've got the Bosch compound miter saw. This is the Axial Glide 12-inch model. It actually does a really good job of picking up sawdust through the chute here and ends up filling this bag up really, really quickly. So it's probably one of the best ones I've seen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my shop vac attachment onto that, and then I'm going to have another downdraft from behind, and anything that overshoots the bag, doesn't make it up inside the bag, is going to end up collecting and falling down into that secondary chute. So for my shop vacs, for my dust collection system, I had the big 4-inch shop. Well, I had the big 4-inch bag vac before, and I didn't find that it was very effective. So I've switched over to the, what is this, 2-inch? Yeah. So I've switched over to the 2-inch traditional shop vacs, or, you know, in my case, I use the rigid vacuums. And they're the blower vacs. There's a reason for that. I'll show you that later. And then I use this central vac tubing. And you can use all the central vac tubings really cheap. So you can buy the shop vac brand blast gates. They're very good. I do have some. You can buy them separate, or you can buy the shop vac kit, which is the same size as this 2-inch central vac tube. Okay, so you don't even need that. But I use this stuff because it's cheap, it's readily available, super easy to use, and I glue it together. You don't necessarily have to, but there's less air leakage, and really, you'll never get, well, okay, I'll never say never. It's rare that you'll get something stuck in this, okay? You really have to work hard at that. If I'm going to use a Forstner bit, and the one I'm going to try is 1 7/8 inch to fit this tubing. So it's the size smaller than this. So it's really close to the size of that tubing. So we're actually going to use a scrap piece to start with and see if this works. So to see if it fits in, and it fits in beautifully. Nice. Drill all the way through, and we'll fit this inside. Wow, that's like super tight. That's amazing. 45 degrees it is. So here's the spot that's going to go into. So what I've done is I've cut these both on 45s, both ends, and drilled holes through it, and we're going to screw these together with, alright, so I'm going to use 1 3/4 inch screws, number 8, and we're just going to screw these in, hold it steady. And the holes are eclipsed a little bit, so we'll just cut that out a little bit, straighten that out. That looks pretty even. It's going to fit here pretty nicely. So we have this set here. I've cut this to size, so it's basically, it's just going to be a little bit taller by like 1.5 inches. So we're going to set this on. We're going to bring it flush with the sides and with the bottom. And these are just like 1.5 inch deck screws, so nothing major here. So now we've got our dust hood, right? And now we have to get our pipe to it, our PVC pipe. So we have this piece, and we're going to use PVC cement. PVC cement is really neat. You get this at the hardware store. This is Oatly medium gray PVC cement. So this stuff, scoopy and gross, you put it on the inside, and then, oops, got some on me here. You also put it on the pipe. It looks like I need some new stuff because this doesn't look very good. Then you just squeeze it together and turn a little bit, and then let it set. It'll be good. We got our elbow, we'll put that up. So it's easier if you do it to the inside first. Now make sure you're in the same direction. Even on this, I'm just going to put a little bit on here just to stick it in the wood. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then, after I jam it into place, I'm actually going to stick a screw in it so it stays where I want it to be. Okay. Now, and we missed. Well, that one's in. There we go. There. That should be sufficient. And we have our pipe coming up. Alright, so here it is. It's all flush mounted. I put a little bit of caulking around the area there so that, you know, the dust doesn't fall in behind, because it's not really going to be accessible for me later. So what I might end up doing is I might put like some clear tape or some tuck tape over this area just to fold it over so none of the sawdust, you know, falls through, just in case the caulking kind of cracks. And then I'm going to put my saw back here, and I'm going to finish the rest of my my in-feed and out-feed table. Alright, so before I bolt everything down, I actually have my in-feed table that's already bolted down. My miter saw is not bolted down, and the out-feed table isn't bolted down yet. So I've taken my biggest level, I've clamped it to the in-feed table fence, the miter saw fence, and the out-feed table fence. So I've made sure everything's nice and square. I've pre-drilled through the cabinet, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put screws in from the bottom of the cabinet up to bolt on, or to fasten the out-feed table to the tabletop, and last I'm going to drill through for the miter saw. So alright, so I'm going to use 1/4 inch bolts and lock washer and nut. So we're going to drill through the small hole here. That one's already done. And do all 4 holes and bolt it in. Oh, not long enough. Alright, so I've finished the first part of my miter saw station. I've got my Husky 46-inch tool cabinets, 3 of those, mounted to bases that are mounted to the floor. And then I've bolted them together, and then I've made my in-feed and out-feed tables, and I've bolted those to the cabinets, well, screwed them to the cabinets, and then I've bolted my saw to the table, or to the cabinets, and then I've made sure everything's nice and flush. And then I finished the last part, the out-feed table over here. I've got my dust collector in the back, and next on the list is to make drawers for the in-feed out-feed table, because I've got some space underneath here. So they'll be tiny little drawers, but you can put stuff in it. And then when you need to clamp something to your tabletop, you can. So you'll just pull out the drawer, and then you can put a clamp on it to hold whatever you're working on. So it's not just an in-feed out-feed table, it can be a workspace as well. And then on the back I've got pegboard to go up. So I'm going to put pegboard up, and then I'm going to put cabinets up as well. So I'm going to stop the video here. We're going to do drawers on another video. Pegboard's really easy, but I'll show you that maybe on another video. And then the cabinets on the back. So here I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what it looks like. I'll try not to have shaky hands here. And then in the back, this back corner here that's open, that's going to be where I put my shop vacs. And then I'll show you all that work later. In the back here, it's a little recessed area, and that's going to be basically a tool tray. So whenever you're working on something, you put your tools back there, or you can make your offcuts from your wood and put your cuts back here, right? You just set it down. And then here's a better view of the dust collector, which is basically just a V with a hole in the bottom, and that runs over to this pipe here, and that's going to go up under the cabinets, and that's my dust extraction. And that's it. You can see I've got outlets on the wall behind. This one is kind of poorly placed. I didn't really think that one through. I didn't have a good place to put it, and that's where it ended up, but that's right where the woods can slide in and hit the plugs, so got to be careful of that. And then I have another set of outlets underneath here, and that is for my my vacuums. And I'll run the saw cord to that as well, probably. Just got to drill a hole through and run that in. And that's that. That's the whole thing. Anyway, thanks for watching.